Hey everybody, Nikki Burnett here with Taste Life Nutrition. I haven't seen you in a while, so good. Hope everybody's having a wonderful 2018. I'm here with Fran Gallagher, and we recently talked about bad habits. So thought we would talk about some good habits to have for a healthy mind and a healthy body. So, I don't know, do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
How about if I start and we'll go back and forth?
Perfect.
So, imagine that habits are a way that your brain makes things easier. So if you had to think all about every move that you make to drive a car, you would be in trouble. And there's some wonderful term for it that I'm not remembering right now. But there are certain learned behaviors that go beyond our conscious effort, and they become, I think it's extrinsic versus intrinsic. And in any case, it just makes, a habit is something you fall back on that makes your life easier. And what we want to talk about is having habits in place so that when you fall back, you're not falling down. You're falling back on something that works for you. So given that, take it away.
Okay, so when I think of good habits, I think of things like when we go to the grocery store. How simple is that? You know, paying attention to what it is that we are putting into our cart. Probably a good habit, and we hear this all the time. It's super simple, but I think it's true, because if we go to the grocery store hungry, we're going to put everything in there in our cart. I've done it 100 times over. I have a weakness for these, they call them natural. They're from Whole Foods and Vitamin Cottage, but they're these Cheeto replacers.
So, or as they say in South Park, cheesy poops.
Cheesy poops, yes, the cheesy poops. I love them, especially the jalapeno ones. And so if I go hungry, I'm going to grab them, and I might grab two. So I've learned not to do that. So being aware of what's in your cart, being aware of what your body needs and how your body is going to utilize it, because what we always want to think about is nutrient density. What is going to feed our body? Remember, food is communication. Food is what tells our cells and our DNA what to do. So super important every time you're eating, because I think that that's not understood, that food is that important, that's how our body functions. It's not just filling our belly, it's not just a few things here and there, it is how our body knows what to do.
Wow, I like being reminded of that. So, you know, one of the main good habits that I want to talk about is meditation. And the ability to settle down and settle in no matter what is going on. And what I've discovered is you don't even have to have that amazing of an experience to shift your nervous system and allow yourself to have a little bit of a discharge. So recently, I did a post on my business page, Really Flourish, on Facebook, about how I meditated. And I thought it was a crappy meditation. I thought that I was going to check my my clock on my phone, and I thought that I wasn't focusing very well. And 20 minutes passed unusually quickly. I opened my eyes, and it was like 7:52 or 6:52 or whatever the exact time was that I was going to open my eyes. And I didn't look 500 times in between the start and the finish. Another quick story is that I got some bad news last Thursday night, but it was right before I fell asleep, and I didn't really let it in until the next morning, which is kind of amazing. I don't know quite how that happened. But I let it in the next morning, and I ended up being a wreck, and I had to go to the dentist for a cleaning. And I have issues around dental work because I had a lot done when I was a kid, a lot of orthodontics, so thank you, Mom and Dad. That's why I have a reasonable smile. But it was traumatic for me. I feel that it was abusive. The dentist was abusive toward me. And so I have to kind of manage myself when it comes to dental care. And I went into the dentist's office, and I was like, what the hell am I doing here when I'm so upset? And should I even be here? And, you know, I just settled down into a meditation. Normally we chat as much as I'm in the shower.
Right. Yeah. So uncomfortable.
I had to say to her that I was going to be meditating, and I just dropped in and dropped down, and it was all fine.
I love that. I need to be able to do that. I have some big dentist appointments coming up, and I need to learn from you.
Well, the other thing is that I get so much tension in my jaw that if I have a very long, involved treatment, I ask for Valium. Now, I don't know if they're going to give it to you now, but otherwise what happens is by the nighttime, my jaw swells, and I can't talk, and I kind of panic when it happens, because I think it happened when I was a kid. And so it's just super duper uncomfortable for me, and I imagine I could handle it if I meditated through that too. But you know, I'm doing really well right now. So that's
right.
So meditation is a really great habit to be able to fall back on. You know, when my mother was dying, I showed up by her bedside. There was nothing I could do. I sat down and I meditated sitting next to her. There's many a situation, and we're not talking that I go into this deep state. We're just talking about being able to shift the nervous system the way that you would downshift if you're driving in the mountains and you hit some icy roads. You want to be able to downshift. You don't want to ride the brake. Everybody who is new to Colorado. So it's the same idea.
Cool. So another good healthy habit, I would say, is really learning and knowing your body. Know what your body needs and what it doesn't need. Just because blueberries are good for some people doesn't mean they're good for everybody. So whether that is paying attention to your body, you know, having a food journal. Food journals are not the easiest thing in the world. They're just a little bit tedious. But you can learn so much about your body by writing things down, and then also writing how you feel. If you have a sensitivity to something, it might show up 2, 3, 4 days later. With gluten, with gluten, it is, I think it's 2 to 9 days that gluten can show up.
10
as a
days
sensitivity.
for me.
Is it? It's 8 for me. 8 for me. And so it's interesting when you're paying attention like that, how well you know yourself and what's going to happen. And then I'd also throw out there, because I think it's important, is getting good labs done, knowing your body, and complete labs. Understanding how your body is working functionally, and what it is that your body needs to bring it back to balance. You know, we all have deficiencies and stuff going on. Even your genetics. You know, I do a lot of genetic testing because I think it's that important. We've talked about the ApoE genotype, and I think it's that important. I run at least that on everybody. So that can just give you a lot of information. I don't need to rehash it, but a lot of good information, knowing your genetics, knowing what your markers are telling you, if you have inflammatory markers, and then what your sensitivities and your allergies are. So I think it's really important to know your body as well as you can, and if you're having trouble doing it yourself, then reach out to somebody that can help you, somebody that you trust.
Well, I want to stray into your territory for a moment.
Please do.
So I remember the very first protein bar that I knew about. I'm not remembering the name of it, but the guy wrote a book and then had follow-on products. And in his foreword, he said that he had worked in the chemotherapy industry creating chemotherapy agents. And they have to do all kinds of things because chemotherapy agents are actually poisons. So they have to do things that will allow this horrible poison to be able to be put into your body. So it's got to be buffered and fixed so it doesn't burn the veins or various things like that. It's no fun, that stuff. And he was saying that in realizing what they were doing to prepare these agents to be put into the body, that we were already doing that by the way that food is something that it has been prepared to be able to put into the body to be used. But he said something similar to what you were saying about communicating with the body, that food is a drug that we generally put into our bodies. And I really remember the power of his introduction of his book, of thinking about food that way.
Yeah. I think it's interesting when we understand the value and the necessity of food and the right foods and what it truly can do. The one thing that I'll say, and I say it a lot, and I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again because it's that important, is if you're bringing in good, healthy foods, you have good, healthy lines of communication. If you're bringing in unhealthy foods, those lines of communication are totally broken, and your cells and your DNA, you can have these negative genetic expressions going on, and they create a lot of problem,
The other thing is that I've had to face, and I wish this wasn't such a struggle for me to make this make sense in my head, but I've talked before about how canola oil is toxic for me. And whether it's canola oil or certain other foods now, my body has gotten sensitive enough that I am going to feel sick if I am introducing a food that doesn't work, or reintroducing a food or whatever. And I haven't figured all this out yet. But
it takes time.
Yeah. But I've mentioned this before, I have an autoimmune disease called rheumatoid arthritis. And I remember before I got treatment and before I knew to be gluten-free, I felt like I was coming down with something almost every day for a year. Because I waited to go to the doctor because I don't like going to the doctor, and I didn't want to turn myself over because I didn't know what was the matter with me.
Yeah.
And I don't go, this sounds counterintuitive, but I won't go to the doctor if I don't know what's the matter with me. And I realize that's arrogance also, and who knows where I'll be challenged with that. But I realized that when my gut gets unhappy, I think it triggers an immune response. So I feel like I'm coming down with something, even though I'm not coming down with something, and I'm useless. And I hate it because I really love how energetic and productive I am most of the time. So just knowing what a big deal a food, when it hits the gut, what it's going to do.
Well, and it's true because, disease really starts a lot of times, most of the time, in the gut. It starts with inflammation. And inflammation is going to trigger an immune response. The gut, if there's dysbiosis, which is an overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria, that can trigger inflammation, which is going to trigger an immune response. The wrong foods you're sensitive to or allergic to, there's a difference, will trigger an immune response. Lots and lots of the toxins in our environment, the toxins that sit in our body, they trigger an immune response. So if you're taking something in that you're sensitive to or allergic to, your body's going to react to it.
And
it's going to try to get it out. So it's going to get it out however it can, whether it's through the liver or whether it's through the skin, or you just feel bad because you've got this overreactivity that just kind of brings you down, and then this uptick in or upregulation in the immune system, and it's no fun.
So the second good habit that I want to talk about from a spiritual growth, personal growth perspective is journaling. So piggybacking on the food journal, to be able to journal about what's going on with you. I am so grateful for that skill because I work through so many things in my journal. Now, I don't journal as religiously as I used to, but if there's an upset in my life, it's going to take me to the journal. And I was so amazed. I think yesterday I looked at my journal and I realized how much I filled of this journal, even though I used to journal every single day. I don't anymore. I can't manage it, or I don't manage it. But it is so useful to process emotional experience, anyway, for me, and to write down dreams. I use it for my 39 wants, needs, and desires, which you may have heard me say.
Yes, I've done that because of you.
And as a practice, just to tell you if you don't know, it was designed by a woman named Paula Langeth Ryan, in her workbook, 21 Days to Abundance. She teaches that you do it every day. I have never managed that. I do it once a week, approximately. I used to be religious about that too. You don't have to distinguish between a want, a need, and a desire. You can put pickles on one line and you can put a new car on another line.
Mm-hmm.
You can put whatever it is you want. You can have one for your everyday life, and then if you wanted a different job or you wanted a different relationship, you can write down what you want. I sometimes will have a list of what I want in a relationship or in my life coming up overall in my life.
Nice. Is there anything? I don't remember what else I was going to talk about.
Well,
that was it.
There's the one about shopping on the perimeter of the store.
Oh, that's a good one. Thanks. I'm doing a fast, and
oh yeah,
my brain is a little foggy. Don't do a fast unless you know what you're doing. This is a medical fast. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I wanted to try it because before I recommend to clients, I try these things myself. So it's good. It's not that difficult, but it's not terribly easy. So there's still some food involved. But point is, my brain's not working quite the way that it should. Tomorrow's day 5, and then I'll be finished. So I'm
good.
happy.
That's amazing. Wouldn't we all like to be on day 4 on a 5-day fast? All of a sudden,
day
look
5's
at what
better.
Yeah. Or the end. Wow, look what I did.
Yeah. Saturday morning will be a good day. Anyway, but yes, shopping on the perimeter, that's always where you're going to find mostly the good stuff. You're going to find the produce. You'll also find some of the bad stuff, and
they figured us out.
Yeah. There's a differentiation in dairy, and I don't really know that we've covered this, but raw dairy for some people is a healthy food. Conventional dairy is never a good food for anyone. And so you'll find dairy on the outside aisle. You'll find the conventional milk. Did you know, sorry, total side note, but milk. So we have pasteurization, which is the heating and the killing of all of the good stuff, the bacteria, the healthy bacteria, the enzymes in the milk.
And the bad.
And the good and the bad, but there's really no bad. I mean, I used to drink raw milk all the time.
Oh,
yeah. I had a raw milk share. Raw milk is a healthy food for some people, not for everybody. And raw cheese. There's raw cheese, too. If you're going to eat cheese, I would say go eat a good grass-fed raw cheese. Anyway, back to the milk. The pasteurization is one thing, but what they do, if you've heard of homogenation, do you know what this is? Oh my gosh.
I know it's where they distribute the cream throughout.
Yes, because for whatever reason, the yummy best stuff on top is not a good thing, and so they decided, whomever they decided that they wanted to distribute it. So the process is breaking down all of these cells, these cream cells, and it oxygenates them. So creating milk that's been homogenized is potentially a carcinogen because it oxidates. Yes. I was blown away. It's been years that I learned that. But so, we've got to be so careful with our food. But milk is often, and dairy is often on the outside aisle. So, and I've seen beer on the outside aisle.
Yeah.
Probably not always the most healthy thing in the world. But all of your produce, in bread. Sorry, I'm getting a little off, but you see bread on the outside aisle sometimes too. Not going to give you good nutrients. Even gluten-free bread, if you're gluten-free, it's not nutrient density. It's not really feeding you. It's just something fun to eat. So, really what we're talking about is the produce section.
And depending upon what works for you, meat too, right? Chicken or meat? Or...
Yes. Grass-fed, pastured, always. More important than organic. And it is a little bit more expensive, but unhealthy meat creates an unhealthy person. And all conventional meat is extremely unhealthy, and it will pass to us. And it will create those epigenetic expressions that we don't necessarily want. And epigenetic expressions will pass down from generation to generation. I just had a conversation with a girl. This is really interesting. She's helping me with my dog on some cancer treatments, and she has cancer all throughout her family. They're all farmers. So,
oh man.
Think about this: pesticides and herbicides, day in, day out. You're breathing it in. It's all around you, right? So what happened? Her granddaughter and this was I thought, I mean, she's young. She's young. She's our age, and she's a grandma. But she had a granddaughter with a super rare brain tumor, and there was like 70 cases or 75 cases, and we talked about this. The only thing that you can think of is, was there an epigenetic expression, negative epigenetic expression, that through time, when they said that it was caused by preservatives, and they're not really sure, but they think it's caused by preservatives. But changing these genes throughout time and making her so susceptible to these preservatives, that she had a massive brain tumor the size of a grapefruit in her head.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is serious stuff. It's not just all woo-woo, it's not going to happen to me. It's a big deal, which is why we do what we do.
So a third good habit that I think is important, and maybe it's a fourth because we talked about 39 wants, needs, and desires. So the first one is meditation, the second is journaling, the third is 39 wants, needs, and desires, and the fourth is trying to have positive thoughts. So one of the most destructive thoughts that we all can habitually have is thinking to ourselves, what's wrong? And sometimes there can be a feeling that something's not right, and it might be useful to think about that. But if you're in the habit of always identifying what's wrong, you're going to miss what's right. What I used to do a long time ago is I would catch myself in a negative thought, and then I imagined these mason jars that were up on a shelf. And one mason jar had a tropical vacation in it, another mason jar had some other dream of mine, another had another. And I'd get down a mason jar and I would start exploring those thoughts to replace the other thoughts.
That's so interesting.
So I know somebody right now who is having a really hard time because they don't enjoy their life. And they go from thinking what's wrong about this situation to what's wrong about that situation. And yes, sometimes you're going to have to think about what's wrong, but please take time to think about what's right also.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think one more that I would throw out there is, and we talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago, but overeating. It's so easy to do. I'm guilty of it. I love food, and sometimes it's hard to stop eating it. Fran is really good about this. She's very, very careful about not overeating. In fact, I believe that you will stop at a certain point whether you have a feeling of fullness or not. Is that right?
Well, I have to stop before I feel full because of that goddamn 20 minutes. Sorry, but because it takes 20 minutes before you feel full.
And it's really true. And that's one of the things that I have discovered myself. And still, I'm guilty of overeating. But what I have found, especially this happens when I'm in a hurry, and which you're not supposed to eat when you're in a hurry anyway, but if I'm grabbing something and I eat a small amount, just enough time, I get out the door, go wherever I need to go, that small amount, although I was not full and I would have eaten more had I had the time, in 20 minutes, I'm actually quite comfortable. And I think it even will continue, I'll continue to fill up over maybe even the next hour, maybe longer. I find that I'm very satisfied, and that's something that this fast has taught me. Like I said, there is food involved, although minimal. I ate for only once so far today, and it was a small bar. It's about 240 calories or something like that, and I ate it at noon, so I want to eat afternoon, but and so I don't know what time it is. It's a couple hours later, and I'm actually very comfortable. So
wow, that's a hell of a bar.
Yeah, it's just nuts mostly. It tastes great, but understanding what your body needs and what you need to feel comfortable, because we don't need to eat as much as we eat. We get these big, huge plates of food, and it's probably enough to feed the whole table.
It's true, and I'm a little bit of a maniac about not wasting. I grew up without enough food, and I'm a maniac about it. And for a little while, I worked for a catering company a few years ago, And the amount of food that people would heap on their plates and then waste and throw away, I found that really awful. So.
Yeah, I know. I don't like that either. I wish we could just give it away. So many people could use it.
Or if we could take what we think we're going to eat. So one of the things you're going to have to be careful about that, I think, is that we have to reduce the amount of food as we age. I can't eat, I've been noticing, and I don't want to sound highfalutin or whatever, but lately I've been having some trouble with my gut, and my body hasn't been feeling good. And on a day like that, I eat probably in a whole day what I used to eat in a single meal. And I don't want to sound like I'm tooting my own horn. It's not that I don't feel good. But I do think we've got to be careful. Like for a restaurant meal, back when I could eat restaurant meals more than I can now, I would eat half and eat the other half at lunch the next day.
Yeah.
So for my last habit that I want to talk about is some kind of exercise and even the joys of walking, because we can literally walk our troubles away. We can leave them behind. And it's so important. What I wonder about is when I read someone's energy, I'm wondering if what I'm picking up is I'm going to call it the clarity of their lymph. So the blood vessels have a pump. The circulatory system has a pump, which is the heart. The lymph vessels, if you look at one of those images of a human and you see red vessels and blue vessels, the blue vessels represent the lymph. And the lymph doesn't have a pump. It relies on contraction and release of the muscles, which is either through exercise or through massage. And there are different exercises, you can look this up, that will change out the lymph in different periods of time. So the most efficient exercise for changing out the lymph, back when I was reading about it, is jumping on a mini trampoline, which is a super duper boring thing to do.
It's a great thing to do, though.
It is great. And I've had people, I have a rebounder, and people have recommended
I keep threatening to get one. I haven't done it yet.
Well, I sometimes will listen. I don't use it as much as I should, but I will listen to podcasts, and I do weights on it and stuff. I sort of kind of screw around. I don't do the greatest, like, it's not the most well thought out exercise program, believe me. But it changes out the lymph in 20 minutes of jumping on the...
You have a ladybug. No, it's a ladybug.
They live in this room. They come through
I love
the
it.
duct or something.
That's
don't
awesome.
Know. It's
of
a
all bugs
office.
to have. Ladybugs are great.
So every exercise is going to have a different level of efficiency in changing out the lymph. And I think that it may be that when we change out the lymph, we are feeling more vital, and I'm picking that up. So I don't know for sure. But
it's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, so walking is required. At minimum, walking is required because your calves contracting push, and it's against gravity, so push the lymph up.
Oh, well, I have a date with a friend to walk when I leave here today.
Good.
So I'm so glad. Well, that's it for me.
Yeah, I think it's it for me, except I would say that, just to kind of go off of the exercise thing, exercise, we all know how important it is, but over-exercising is inflammatory, and obviously under-exercising, I guess probably could be inflammatory in some ways. It's just fatifying. It's just not good, or we're meant to move. So either of those, over or under exercising, can also create genetic expressions that we may not necessarily want. So whether your exercise is walking, whether it's doing some weight training, yoga, karate, whatever it is that keeps you moving, just keep it in check either way, because the body's not meant to be stressed constly. Stressed some, yes.
All right. Well, this is so fun to do this with you, Nikki.
I know, it's always great. Yep, thank you. If you have questions, put them below. Let us know. We're here to chat and to talk it up and to educate, and we want to help in whatever way we can. So
thanks, everybody.
We'll see y'all later. Bye.